Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking time out this lunchtime to hang out with us with your cup of tea, your cup of coffee and a bite to eat. And we're going to chew the fat, Scottish styley. So welcome Australia and everyone else. And today we're going to reflect, consider and gaze into the future and think along in conversation today with Andrew Dobbie, founder and chief executive of MadeBrave, a strategic brand agency in Glasgow, Edinburgh and London. Welcome, Andrew. How are you?
I'm all right, Caroline. Thanks for having me. Thanks
Hanging
for
out,
joining,
liking
everyone.
the purple lights in the background there. Very cool.
Yeah, this is just an excuse for me to buy gadgets. This has been a work in progress during COVID, something to keep my mind off everything else, I suppose.
So thank you for doing this chat with us today. I wanted to ask you specifically about the future of work because I've been following you. Obviously, I've known you for a few years, but I've been following you on LinkedIn, and I was struck by your response straight out the gate. I mean, almost, it was before actually the government made its announcements. You had already been thinking about how you might work from home, how your team might stay at home and be safe. And so I wanted to cast your mind back to that moment where you started to think about how are we going to do this? And I know there was fears and other thoughts and consideration, your team, your income for your team, their safety. So I was wanting to ask what was going through your mind and your heart that helps you to then make decisions about how you're going to change and how quickly you did that.
Yeah, well, it's been a year that's felt like 10 years, hasn't it? I think. So I suppose thinking back to last March, yeah, and as a company, for context for everyone, so we have just under 50 employees. So I think, yeah, we moved proactively to go remotely before the government had mandated it to do so. But I can't take ultimate credit for it. It was actually my operations director that he kind of, I don't know, his spidey sense went off and he felt like something wasn't right and he thought we should be really proactive towards this. And obviously I have to then make a decision, and we made the decision together at that point. And actually, funnily enough, I wasn't long back from China. I'd been in China not long before, and I suppose it all felt like it was far away from us, all these challenges. But yeah, very quickly we realised that it was going to impact us, and we thought we better get ahead of it. So last year, yeah, we split our team into three first of all, and we sent the most vulnerable, or anyone that had vulnerable people in their family, we sent them home indefinitely and just said, just you guys you don't need to come in, just work from home. And then we said, let's rotate two teams in and out of the office. And I think that lasted 2 days, I think.
Yeah, you shared that on LinkedIn, then 2 days later,
Yeah,
said, no, scratch, everyone's working from home.
Yeah, I mean, STV got wind of it, and that same day that we implemented it, they asked us to come on the news. So we were invited on STV. They came down very much quickly that day because I think everyone was starting to think, well, do we need to do something or not? Yeah. And so they kind of put us on STV, and we talked about it. And yeah, a day or two later, it was like, nope, I think we all need to go home. So we just sent everyone home at that point. And I suppose, yeah, where my mindset was, I started to really panic. I actually went out for dinner, I think, on one of those nights, because I thought, I think we're going to go into some sort of lockdown here. Yeah. I went out to dinner, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I actually had tears in my eyes sitting at the table, and I went into real panic because I thought my whole business was going to get pulled from underneath me, because I started to think, if people get ill, well, I don't have them people to commit on contracts that I already have. So I thought, how am I going to do, a service-based business like MadeBrave? You've got continuous work on the go. So I thought, if I'm going to have to let people down, and then I thought, well, what are the ramifications of that? So I really did start to panic, and I sat at a table with a couple of friends, another friend who owns a business, and he was like looking how panicked I was, and he didn't feel as panicked, but the next day he went into total action mode as well and had that same sort of panic.
Yeah, and the panic led to a fast-paced creative thought pattern, and you put a working plan in place after that first couple of days where everyone worked from home. So I wondered, what did you put in place at that point, and what worked about that? And have you tweaked it since? What have you learned along the way? Any gaffes along the way?
Well, there's many. I think, for us, we were quite fortunate in that, a lot of businesses had to transform digitally very quickly to catch up with this. And, a lot of businesses didn't have cloud-based anything. So we were quite fortunate that everything we did was cloud-based anyway.
Right.
And what I did have though is I had two businesses. So I had MadeBrave in Glasgow, which is our creative brand agency, and we had over in Edinburgh, we had another company, Campfire, a content production team. And with Campfire, that business relies on well, we do film production all around the world. So we had loads of shoots all over the world. We had a shoot just about to be rolled out into Germany, and we had teams different places. And that, I know there's a lot of freelancers on the call today. We also had a lot of freelancers that we build around teams and around projects. So very quickly, all of our film production shoots got cancelled as soon as the lockdown happened.
Right.
So that was my second wave of panic, is that suddenly all these bits of work I've got on that side of the business are stopping, and we're not going to be able to do those, and we didn't know when. And then we had other clients, I suppose clients like First Bus. We do all the marketing for Scotland, and suddenly if no one's on the bus days, well, there's not much marketing that needs to happen as well. So I suppose there was all these impacts that were happening.
Right.
And yeah, so we sent everyone home, and we started to work remotely. And I think we started to do, start to use tools, Zoom, Slack, like everyone else. And I started to have, instead of doing either monthly stand-ups with the whole team, I said, we're going to do these every day. And every day I'm going to talk about what's good, what's bad, what's not, indifferent. And I'll tell you warts and all where we are. And we just, we sort of took that approach of let's be completely transparent, let's figure this out together. But only my thought was that I've never been through a pandemic, and most of my team have not been through a pandemic. I don't think anyone has. So we need to work at it together as a team. So, I think, if you're leading a business, you can't possibly have all the ideas or all the solutions, but you need to open it up to let everyone help do that. So that was very much our approach at that point.
And what did the team and yourselves then finally land on as a formula for how you might work? Because I know when we started working from home, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle 21 Slack channels, Zoom calls, Teams meetings. The communication was too much. There was also like social, and I just went, that's all wonderful. I get that I should really love this, but actually, I'm actually can't handle it. Can I just have email? And can I have occasional meetings? And can we do asynchronous updates? And could we just chill? And it took a couple of weeks for everyone to kind of go, yeah, okay, actually, we're having the same trauma with using all these channels. So I was wondering how you also managed then the workflow and your team as you got bedded into this, because we're first lockdown, second lockdown, third lockdown.
Well, as I said, luckily we were already on Slack and tools like that, so it wasn't a huge remove for us. I mean, not everyone was using Slack. Most of the business was using Slack, but so that was quite easy. I actually quite liked it because usually you're constrained by how many physical offices you have in a space. So if I say to you, Caroline, we need to go and talk about something private right now, if my meeting rooms are full, we don't have that capability. So what I quite liked, especially when you're in the trenches as you are with a situation like that, is that you're able to get a hold of anyone at any point, which was good. First of all, I think latterly, or most recently, that kind of interruption culture is not great. But I think when you're trying to figure out what we're in and get people on the call, it means you suddenly had multiple meeting rooms, which I did find good.
And did you have to use project planning tools to manage all of your projects in a remote way?
Yeah, and again, we're already doing that, so that was the easy bit for us. So that wasn't.
We're already prepped. So these are great tips for people who are listening and thinking, well, actually, I don't have that. So
yeah, so now I think that's really important, that you need that kind of documentation and you need that audit trail. So having that in place was kind of okay. So
now you've been doing this for 3 lockdowns, and I think you stated online, we're working from anywhere forever. And I wondered, you obviously must have seen benefits to this way of working, benefits to the team, to the way that you're working with clients, and also recruitment of talent. And just wondered if you wanted to reflect on the benefits of this way of working.
Yeah, well, I think, following the panic, I think probably everyone went into panic in some form or another, and I'm sure people in this call did the same. So I panicked for quite a wee while, and then I thought, I need to stop panicking and I need to lead my way out of this. And I thought someone kind of needs to try and lead in the creative industries. And I said to my team, and I felt that would give us purpose beyond just making our own company survive. I thought if we can actually lead, help others, it'll make us feel good. It will actually have a positive impact, and by default, that will help people will help our business. And so I believe in that. So we kind of changed around at that point. We said, let's create, and we created a support group on LinkedIn. So we created the Creative Industry COVID support group. So if you're on here, it's a group for freelancers, for creatives to go on, and lots of people are sharing grants, loans, and just help if you need it. So there's about 4,000 people joined that very, very quickly. And again, as I say, that gave us a reason to kind of stand up, get out of bed, and keep moving forward. And then we collaborated with Rachel Brown from the Cultural Enterprise Office, which is now Creative Entrepreneurs Club. And we worked with them to build out their sort of platform with a job board. And we opened that up again for the creative industries with Rachel. And that gave me a bit of focus, which was good, bit of direction. And it gave our team that, as I say, that purpose. And then we thought, well, if we're going to lead that in that sense and try and help others, let's also lead the way in trying to think about COVID now and think with a beginner's mind, not think about, you start to hear a narrative of, well, when does it go back to normal? And I kind of thought, well, it's not really going to go. So why don't we figure out what a new, better tomorrow could look like? And we've always tried at MadeBrave, we're not always successful, but we always try to lead it in the sense of, kind of leading a new direction. So we thought, well, this work from anywhere thing, we were already trying to sort of have a more flexible sort of work frame for our team. And we thought, why don't we just lead with, we're going to continue to work from anywhere. So that, and what I kind of said to my team is, we went out to the press because we had other news to talk about at the same time. I said, I'm going to go out, we're going to talk about this. I don't know how to do it, right? But what I said is that you don't get to the moon by figuring out how to get to the moon, right? Getting on the moon and then telling everyone you're going to the moon. You tell everyone you're going to the moon, and then as a team, you figure out how you're going to get there. So I said, if we go out publicly and say we're going to work from anywhere forever, it's going to force us to figure out how to do that. And change is not easy. But that put our kind of flag in the moon to say we're going there. And then we set off on the path to do that.
That reminds me of something else you said. The office should be a destination we choose to go to, and not a mandatory place to be. But we'll get to that in a minute. I was also wanting to ask you then about, how has that affected work from anywhere forever? Also means that you could be open to talent from all over Scotland. They don't have to be at your Glasgow base or Edinburgh or near commuting distance to that, and possibly also get access to global specific skill sets you might need for an assignment. How has it improved your ability to recruit?
Yeah, well, hugely. So I suppose it's worth maybe noting for those listening that we just fitted out a huge office, 7,000 square foot, literally a month before the shutdown. So that was also, I think, to my worries. And I could probably post a link at some point. I'll post a link shortly of the studio. And we decided to do that anywhere thing. And I suppose a lot of people were saying they're going to shut their offices to cost. We just signed an 8-year lease on that office. So 8 years. So we had no option to. But yeah, like you said, what we started to realize and what we started to say was, why don't we make this a destination that people want to come to but don't have to? And I remember, going from freelancer or even being a freelancer to business owner, I also enjoyed the fact that I don't have to be somewhere and I can be where I need to be. And I thought, we started to think, why should that only be the business leader or owner that gets that benefit? Why can we not make that happen for everyone? So remember, we had our Glasgow base, we've got our Edinburgh base, and then we've got London base. So we closed London for the period of COVID because we thought there's no one in it just now. So let's close that, save the money there. We then, for there, made the decision we're going to be stronger as one unit if we integrate both of our companies together. So I then set off this path to merge two companies together, Campfire and MadeBrave. So that happened, and we had to do that all remotely and figure that out, which is challenging in itself. But yeah, what I realized was that we'd be one company that would be stronger to ride through COVID with one purpose, one set of values, vision, etc., etc. And then if we had this work for model, yeah, as you say, we would start to be able to open up the benefit of having bases, but people located anywhere. And yeah, I suppose we started to try and figure out, how does this policy look from a work from anywhere? Because what does that mean?
Yeah.
And this led us into a path of, we tried and tried and tried. We were figuring this out. I've got an in-house head of people and culture, Hannah, and she's done a fantastic job sort of trying to figure out this policy. We then enlisted the help of a company called Flexibility Works. So
Yes.
if you're currently struggling and trying to figure this out, you can speak to them. We surveyed all of our teams, all of our staff, and we tried to figure out and ultimately what we landed on was, the reason we were giving everyone work from anywhere is that we wanted to give them flexibility. So this evolved and evolved, and I think this is quite good, is that you know, I started to get quite stressed again that, oh God, I've said to the team, I've said to the world, we're doing this policy, but I don't know how to do it. And
Yes,
you know,
like planting your flag on the moon and then working out how to get there.
And Flexibility Works, they said to me, don't be stressed by that. They said, that's good, you've set a vision, and most businesses haven't gone out to set the vision, and you're now working towards it. So so I've kept that narrative up with my team, is that it's a working policy, we're working through it. But ultimately what it then shaped is that we started to develop this sort of triple flexi policy. So we said, rather than just thinking about giving people flexibility of where they work, you know, ultimately what we've learned, I think, through COVID especially, is that we all have different lives at home and different situations. Some of us are caring for young children. Some of us are caring for people who are older or ill. You know, we all have different stresses and strains depending on the sort of balance of our life in that pool. And so what we decided was, could we make a policy that sort of flexes around everyone individually?
Right.
And this led us to this
challenge.
Triple flexi policy, which sounds like a burger. And yeah, we launched recently this campaign around sort of triple flexibility. And what we landed on there was that we want to give people kind of flexi desk. So that's the flexibility to work where and when they need to. So what I've said is, like, you know, be in the office or the studio if you want, but you don't have to. You can work from home, work from a cafe, whatever is right. Flexi time. So we've opened up that we will have flexibility to start within a flexible time frame in the morning and flexible in the evening. Now remember, we are service based, so we kind of have to have core hours to be there for clients. And then we've also introduced flexi leave. So we've given a really generous leave of 37 days a year, but we've said, if you also run out of holidays, well, just come and ask. And if it doesn't impact your team, it doesn't impact your clients, and, you know, it works, then let's just, you know, take the extra holiday. And we built it around these 3 pillars. And this was Hannah's idea, so I'm not taking any credit, it's all her. Built around trust, freedom, trust, and respect. And so it's the idea that we will give the freedom as a business to do what you need to do when you need to do it, but we will trust that we will respect each other, and we will do what's right for ourselves, our clients, and the business.
We've seen a revolution in that regard, because this presenteeism and necessary to be there and be seen to be there, etc., and kind of felt like, well, do you not trust me? I do enjoy what I do, so do you not trust me to do it? And of course the pandemic showed that people can be trusted to do what they do. And so I think that your Flexibility Works, for example, that you mentioned, did a survey of the wider economy, but they said that the employers saw a benefit, like in some regards on work productivity, 61%, and employees were saying 55% would like to see more flexibility. So now that you've put this in place and you've galvanized it in a policy, I can definitely see that there's no going back to normal for you. You're going back to a different way to work. And so I wanted to ask you about different ways of working then. I can see how you've rotated MadeBrave, but have you noticed how your clients have changed the way they work? And have you had to adapt to that?
Yeah, well, I think it's different for every client. I think, and that's what we're, you know, slowly but surely finding out as well. You know, we've had some clients that when we've had a workshop, you know, we want to come and we want to have a socially distant workshop, and then you've got the challenge of going, does our team feel comfortable with that? You know, and then you've now got people who are there physically, you've got people there remotely, and you've got the IT challenges of that, because just now we're all in individual booths, if you like, because we're all at home. But as soon as you start blending physically and digitally, there's a lot of technical challenges that brings as well, because you've suddenly got feedback loop from everyone's computer unless everyone goes on mute, and so there's that. But yeah, no, I think different businesses are working differently. We work with a lot of global businesses, brands like Nestle, Medtronic, and we're working with teams all over the planet. So a lot of them are already set up for this, and they're quite used to that. I suppose the difference is we're now running workshops digitally like this, which is, I think you lose something in terms of the human interaction and the kind of energy in a room creatively, but we have still been managing to do creative jobs. I think, you know, some of the challenges that I've found, I think there's many, and, you know, every day I'm finding new ones, is that I think it's very hard. I think it's very easy, sorry, when you're in a room to see stress happening. You know, you can identify someone's been at their desk too long, or they've been working later than they should be, and it's easy to go and fix that problem before it becomes a problem. What I've found is that it's harder to spot. You know, not everyone will come on all hands all the time, and sometimes people shield if they're feeling stressed. So I've tried to let our team know that we have, you know, to be open about mental health, to be open about talking if you're feeling challenges. What I've also found is that our people person, Hannah, has never been more busy, because there's more challenges just now. And so we're actually hiring a second people person at the moment. And we kind of predicted that last year. I sat down with Stephen, our director, and said, I bet you this time next year we will have two culture people, because there'll be so much more pressure on this.
And I think that's interesting you brought that up, because well-being has obviously been the focus of the pandemic, but also well-being and how we work and how we value our creative team. And it's come up in the autonomy report as well. They used the phrase in regard to home working, but in particular to freelancers who may not have a place to be normally and might get used to working at home, but there's no demarcation anymore. So the phrase they used was always on, always alone. Well, as you say, that's not good.
No.
And so the autonomy report were saying that maybe we'll see more co-working spaces emerge in local high streets, and freelancers wanting to be less working from home as they might, and work with a client, because that dynamic has gone of working at home a bit and then going to see the client and whatever. It's just like, what's home time and what's work time, what's home space and what's workspace. And also I'm alone. So I think that they're saying that they're predicting co-working spaces might emerge in our high streets and create that demarcation. And creative networks like Creative Edinburgh, Creative Stirling, Creative Dundee, Cabin, Creative Entrepreneurs Club, they all help, Creative Stirling, etc. But I'm wondering if we'll also see that supplemented by physical spaces. And I just wondered if you've seen that emerging with your talks with freelancers that you work with.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think it's a big issue, and it's something we've got to make sure that we look after, because we've got to remember not everyone has the same home working environment. You know, some people, you know, you'll have some people online, oh, I love remote working, you know, in your, you know, got a nice big garden, nice big house, depending on where you are in your life journey. You know, some people are sharing with multiple people, don't have a desk, don't have the right equipment. And I think you'll see, we were already seeing it pre-pandemic with WeWork and, you know, all of these kind of models. It was already starting to happen. At MadeBrave, we've always housed freelancers in with us. So when we've had spare desks, we've always, you know, encouraged people to kind of share spaces within our space.
Will that be an element you'll be able to keep in the office? Because I know I was about to ask you anyway, so I'll come on to this naturally. Is what have you actually done with your office? What is your office going to be moving forward?
Yeah, well, I suppose that, you know, the question about whether you can have freelancers in, we still need to figure these things out, because there's all the risk assessments of what you're allowed at the moment. But, you know, I have heard from, you know, a group of freelancers that I know that have all gone to, they're sharing a space. But quite interestingly, what's quite different about it is they're sharing a space with a restaurant bar. So what most people are sort of predicting is that people will come together more socially and to eat, etc., and collaborate, but then, you know, maybe go off to work elsewhere. But they're sharing a space that is a restaurant and bar, and during the day they'll use it as a collaboration space with multiple different freelancers, and at night it'll turn back into a bar. So I think you'll get some clever models like that.
Yeah, I like that. That is cool. And so I was thinking then about if we blow this out a bit further then and raise our eyes up, what do you think the benefits to the whole creative sector might be in working in the way that you have shown experimentation and leadership in? And I just wondered if you could forecast a little bit what you think the benefit may be to the whole sector.
Well, there's some benefits and there's some challenges, right? In terms of benefits, we've hired about maybe 7 or 8 people during COVID, and we've now been hiring. We've had applications from London, Paris, New York, Oregon, all over the world. Now that's great because the creative industries have got a diversity challenge where you know, we need to address, and by opening up a pool of people of talent from everywhere and anywhere, you can help make positive change there. So we found that's definitely one of the major positives. I think the flexibility of allowing people to work anywhere allows for, you know, we've hired recently, I was thinking of one person in the team, there's a new mother. So allowing the flexibility is that, you know, she potentially wouldn't have felt to come and apply, not knowing that you have such a flexible workplace. So, you know, I've allowed, you know, 4 days a week, but also the flexibility within those 4 days. And as a father myself, I know what flexibility you need with children. So I think there's all of these benefits if people can embrace that new change. I think in terms of challenges, what I've found is, well, suddenly if you have people from London applying for your jobs in Scotland, we have a market differentiation in terms of salaries, and usually people in London and Paris and cities like that get paid more because there's a higher cost of living. But if you then, as a Glasgow-based business, hire someone from London, their expectation is a salary on the cost of London, although they may be working from home. And then what does that do when we're looking at things like pay gaps and pay disparity to the rest of the team? Do we now need to start paying everyone in Glasgow the same rate as in London? And how do we work that out? And that's a challenge, you know, because you've got people from different places and you're trying to balance that out. And, you know, we're trying to be best in class in terms of there's no disparity, there's no equity gap, but these changes make that challenging. So that's definitely one of the challenges.
Yes, I can see that. That reminds me of something that I saw last year with a minimum wage discussion, and Switzerland's minimum wage was between 3,500 and 4,000 a month. And I was like, I think that's pretty good. But of course, their cost of living was ridiculous. And so actual fact, that was the minimum wage. So I can understand now what you're saying about different rates of pay, different expectations to living where they live and the cost that's associated and the salary that they would require. So that is a challenge. We might come back to you when you figure that one out.
Yeah, if anyone's got the answer, let me know.
So as we move ahead now, we're looking at maybe trickling back to this hybrid in June where some meetings will still be on Zoom or Teams because the client is.
Yep.
Some will be physical because we can be outside, we can socially distance, we can go to a cafe, maybe go to each other's offices. But I think it'll be a slow trickle, maybe June to September. But I was just wondering, when we get to that point, are you thinking, you know, by then I'm going to need some new tech, or I'm going to have to change again what I'm thinking? You got anything up your sleeve that you're thinking about for the next?
Yeah, so it's all happening already, Caroline. So so
cool.
we've already we're investing sizable amounts of sums in terms of all the tech, in terms of updating conferencing technology to make sure we can do this hybrid way. We built an event space in our studio as well, so we'd always planned to live stream from that, but now we have to think about that a little bit differently in terms of a blended audience of some people remotely, some people live events. So at the moment we're building out a sort of live stream area for doing that. We're also building out a live streaming pod, if you like, kind of like a YouTube studio with fancy lights, etc. I've been doing a lot of podcasting in this room. This is just a spare sort of upstairs bedroom, but I'll need to make this happen in the new studio, and you can't take up a full office every day when you're doing live streams because there's people needing meetings. So we're building a sort of custom booth with kind of racking and everything, so you can attach cameras and different things. And then we've also got this, we bought these amazing products last year called, I think they're made by a company called Room. They're singular booths. They're kind of like phone booths, but with just desks in them and completely soundproof. And we've ordered a handful of these because, again, I foresee the problem of when you go back into the studio, if you've got 50 people on different Zoom calls or the same Zoom call, you're going to have all sorts of feedback and hearing other people. So I think we're going to need lots of little isolation pods. And so we're already in the process of building these or buying them. Yeah, this week we're doing all the deep cleans and everything for the studio. And we plan to start trickling in from next week in small groups. I suppose we kind of want to get people, so many people in our team haven't met each other, or we just want to, I suppose for some of the people that might be struggling, is get them back with a bit of social interaction. So there's lots of risk assessments and all that boring stuff that you have to do as a business owner, but we're working our way through it.
I think this is great, and I think this is Mental Health Awareness Week, so it's interesting you're saying like some people just are desperate to get back and they need the interaction. So from what I can tell from what you're saying is the office has become a content production studio, an ideation space that's hybrid, some desks socially distanced, and some
and I think we'll make those like hot desks now. So pre-COVID, they were like, you would have your desk, Caroline has her desk, Andrew has his desk, but I think we're planning to have everyone just so you'll kind of book desks more, and so it's kind of a swap in and swap out. There's also some of the other challenges, I suppose, just thinking as one that I had yesterday, is that you've got, if you're letting people work from home and the office, well, do you need to kit out their home as well? So we've just had to ask everyone, because everyone took their chairs home, but then you leave people in a situation where they don't have chairs. So we've just had the cost of having to buy everyone a chair. And that doesn't seem a lot, but if you start to think 150, 200 pounds, 50 people, it starts to add up to a lot of money. So you've got I suppose you've got all the mental challenges of COVID, you've got all the isolation people challenges, and then you've got the practical monetary challenges. And not every business is in the place, and that's hard because it puts pressure. I don't want to do with what we've put out as a campaign to put pressure on any other businesses, because I've been a smaller business, I've been a freelancer, I've been a team of 3 and 4, and at that scale, to have to buy 4 or 5 chairs for people could break your business, So I suppose if anyone listening, it's almost not to have the pressure on you, it's to try and decide what's right for you and take incremental steps towards what's right. And if it's right to go back because that's all you can afford to do, then that's the right solution. I'm just trying to do what seems to be right for us at this moment.
Thank you for that, Andrew. I'm going to close now and look at questions in chat from our audience today. But final little thought from you on any tips you would share for anyone thinking on this call today about making these sorts of changes. Any tips that you would suggest to them?
I would just say, this is a stressful time for everyone. And, sometimes people might look at MadeBrave and think, oh, they've got it all figured out. We don't have it all figured out. We've got all the same stresses and strains as everyone else. So try not to overthink and compare yourself to people on the internet. It's just, we're all going through this. And the nice way someone phrased it is that we're in the same storm, but we're in different sized ships. Some people have got a canoe, some people have got a yacht, and some people have got a pallet, trying to float on a pallet, so it's, just try not to go hard on yourself. I find it very hard many days, and I'm not scared of talking about that. It's difficult, it's challenging, there's a lot of pressures, and I suppose just trying to keep looking forward. There's no option but to get it done. Is what I kind of keep telling myself.
Absolutely, and you're going to plant that flag on the moon for real when you get there. And so again, thank you so much for today and for your efforts, as I say, as a community leader, in sharing your thoughts from day one, from sharing all your trials and tribulations and successes and ideas, and for sharing support through the Creative Industries COVID support group. So thank you so much for everything you've done, Andrew.
Oh, thanks,
and everyone here, I'm sure, will thank you for sharing your heart and mind today. And I'm going to hand over now to Kath, who has been keeping an eye on the Q&A.
Hello. Yes, I have. So keep questions coming in. We should have time for some more questions, everyone, if you have them on your mind. I've kind of grouped them into a few areas. and you've actually, Caroline, great question asking, has kind of touched on a lot of the questions coming on the Q&A. But the first kind of area of interest was around recruitment and employment and who you're employing. So we had a couple of questions in the Q&A. So one was from Alex about the in-house head of people and culture. Was that an existing member of staff or was it a new role, and what did it entail? And then Jure, hope I'm pronouncing your name right, also asked they'd be interested in such an opportunity. So what channels are you recruiting the second person? So just I think more about that role people seem to be particularly interested in, Andrew.
Yeah, well, that head of people role is quite an interesting one, actually, because Hannah started out as my PA, an office manager, many years ago. So she got to know me inside out and know how, I suppose, the culture I'm trying to build and the business I'm trying to create. She then became a traffic manager at MadeBrave. And she then was headhunted by the BBC, and she went off to the BBC, and she preferred MadeBrave, so she came back, and I took her back to MadeBrave. And at that point, I had a new traffic manager, I had a new PA, and I thought, what a great role for Hannah would be head of people, because she's really empathetic. She understands what I'm trying to create in terms of a culture, and so we've been training Hannah up on all of our CIPD. Qualifications, etc. Now, she has got so much on her plate now that she has been requiring a people coordinator underneath to help with the culture, etc. So that role she's actually recruiting for. They've just done about 15 interviews, I think, the last couple of days. But Hannah is also, fortunately, pregnant, so she's about to go off on maternity soon. So we will be looking for a replacement for maternity cover for Hannah as well. And I'm sure as the business grows, I can foresee that we'll need more people in that team. So yeah, there's lots of options there.
Great. Well, the website will be in the follow-up, everyone. So if you're interested, have a look at the MadeBrave website. And then another kind of theme of questions coming in around recruitment and employment, and actually partly from me, based on conversations we've had as Creative Edinburgh recently, is, you know, we support early stage creatives and people as they're graduating and coming out of university. And in a lot of these conversations we're having about pandemic working, oh, excuse me, that's my Slack going out. There is this kind of question about how supported are those people at their very early stage of their career in terms of, as you say, like the social aspects of young early career people starting their jobs and building their skills. And someone's also asked in the chat that they said they worked with unemployed youth, so was wondering on how to point them into growth industries. So I don't know if you have some thoughts around that kind of area.
Yeah, I think for anyone looking to get their step into the industry, I think now is a great time, because never before now has everyone been so accessible for help and advice. And I think that's how often you'll get somewhere, is like reaching out to people and asking for advice. What I would say is, don't send huge messages to people. Sometimes I think people have, you know, when they're reaching out to business owners, etc. Often you get so many messages during the day, and when someone sends a giant message and you've got loads of challenges on your plate, it feels so overwhelming to have to figure out to go through that. Little easy questions are the ones that will get the best responses. And, you know, ask for time. I mean, I give my time all the time, trying to help people who are starting their journey. So if anyone, you know, wants a little session, who wants to reach out, I will try my very best. I do get a lot of requests, but I will try my very best to come back to you. And if I don't come back again and pester me at some point. And I'd say just do that, and look at all of these organizations like Creative Edinburgh. They're all here for support, and you know, it's not being afraid to ask. I think it's a tough time, but it's also it's a good time for creative people, because when you've got problems, you need creativity. So if you can kind of show that, and what I always encourage for younger people as well is, if you can get comfortable, try and get on LinkedIn, try and, you know, use these platforms, find a way that you're comfortable communicating. So for some people it might be writing, some people it might be talking, filming yourself, some people it might be writing blogs. Find your happy place, but put out your narrative. And even if it is that you're struggling to find a job, put that out as your narrative, because what will happen is someone will say, well, I kind of know someone into that skill set, or, you know, and start putting things together. But if you just keep it all inward and worry in your own head, then there's no one can help you as such.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. And I think that, as Andrew was saying, reaching out to networks and local community co-working, even if it's not creative, you're going to meet adjacent skills that you can work together and collaborate, or even get skills from people. You can observe them and absorb from osmosis. And trade bodies as well. If your particular skill set has a local or national trade body, you can join that. And again, you'll get support and colleagues and hopefully work opportunities as well.
It's confidence, isn't it? And it's a lot of the work as we do with students is knowing your value and being able to put it out there. And that's no easy thing, and maybe takes a lifelong career to figure out. But yeah, it's having that as an entry point to these conversations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good advice. A couple more questions coming in. So another question from Alex Cowles, which came through right at the beginning of today's conversation, but I think is a good one to think about, is how do you encourage what he calls passive innovation, or she, I apologize, Alex, when working remotely? So those kind of water cooler moments, basically. I guess as we go back, if it's staggered returns and things, how do you keep those kind of organic creative moments happening and ensuring people aren't missing out from home and things? So you've touched a bit on that on the way you're setting up the office, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that if anyone's got the answer to that, I would like to know, actually, because I think you do miss a lot of that. I've been in the office recently and just with a few people, and it's amazing how much you hear and overhear, and then you join in and start to build upon ideas, and you miss that part. So yeah, I mean, we've done things at MadeBrave, like we have a water cooler channel on Slack. So, you know, there will be people there at X times during the day. You can turn up and have a coffee and talk. What we've also started doing at the end of our all hands. So I've been doing all hands. I was doing it 5 days. We've gone to 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we have everyone on all hands, and I'm letting everyone know where the company is, what position we're in, what's happening, good or bad. And then at the end, we split off into small groups. So we split off into 5 or 6 people. And it's because you're now not seeing everyone in the company like you normally would. So we're almost kind of forcing it in a nice way, so that you have just small chat, but sometimes that small chat turns into, oh, what are you working on? And oh, I was working on that. And we're doing the same thing. We should have figured out where, you know, so I think you have to kind of try and create a bit of culture around that rather than hope that it's going to happen, because it's not, because I think people have fatigue from Zoom and all of these things. So the idea of just coming on, you know, to hopefully bump into people is not going to happen. You have to make it happen.
I was in a co-working space the other day, and in the lunch area is rows of string, and the community is their photograph and their name, and what they do is pegged up, and so you can actually see the community, and there's a message board digitally to message people, but there's also a whiteboard for just passing comments and ideas, and so everyone will eventually, if they're chuntering through making a coffee, will see it. So people are trying to find ways to replicate, as Alex was saying, those water cooler inspiration moments.
Yeah, definitely. And actually kind of following on from that, there's a few questions coming in around diversity. And Julia in particular said, as an older person, do we too need to change careers? Is there scope for diversity for all ages to join this new way of working? So obviously online has enabled so many people, but potentially hindered so many people. Have you thought about that in that kind of plan for going back and keeping I think that conversation going?
The best creative ideas come from diversity of thought. So I'm a big advocate for, you know, having different people with different perspectives, age, location, background, you know, everything. So I think it's important that businesses do look at that. Sometimes there's a kind of cultural thing where we seem to need to get the youngest, brightest people in every business, but I think balance is what's required. You know, we have ages ranging from 19, 20 to 60 in MadeBrave, or, you know, late 50s. And I like that, because there's things I can learn from here, and there's things I can learn from here. And I think, you know, a good culture is built around diversity of thought and diversity of groups.
I think if the digital is maybe one of the kind of worries, you've got Raise Your Game, which obviously is open to all, looking to try and develop digital skills in a comfortable, you know, empathetic community. And also Creative Scotland with Susie Glass and another fund has created digital mentoring, and there's sessions available for one-to-ones. So people are, you know, reaching out to try to help people to get over those stumbling blocks and say, look, I know for now, maybe always the technology is going to be part of the toolkit you're going to have, but there's resource. And the Scottish Funding Council has supported free places, or workforce development fund free places for learning through the university, and some of that is bite-sized. So hopefully people can find the support they need in various places to suit, so they can feel equipped and jump in.
Yeah, definitely. And they're really useful resources to have. So if you ever need signposting to resources like that, let us know. I think it was Julie who asked that question. So we have 2 more questions coming in. That's maybe about what we've got time to, which are kind of random ones that have popped up for you, Andrew. So Charles was asking, how do you cater for people that hate hot desking and who in the future may well need to be occasionally in the office, in quotation marks? So.
Yeah, well, I think this is, I don't know completely, right? Because I'm figuring it out myself. But what we have said to the team is this is why we're trying to build the culture around freedom, trust, and respect, is that we will try and build it around a flexibility for everyone, but everyone has to respect that that's going to look differently for some people. So yes, for some people, they might need a fixed desk and they can only do their job. Like for some of my team, I've got like 3D artists that have big, desktop computers. I can't afford to buy one for their home and one for their office, right? So they might have to be office bound. But what I've said is we will try our best to give flexibility that works for everyone in some way or another. So I think that's, if you have the flexibility of time, leave, and how we work, it's letting know that you might, flexibility of time might work less for you, but you'll get more advantage to where you work. Someone else might have one or the other. So it's about, I know it's hard because like HR people like policies that are strict for everyone, but I think that's kind of broken. You need the flexibility, but I might get proven wrong. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
And we had that conversation as well, and I suggested that the drawer pack is wheeled over to wherever my desk happens to be that day, and people had this imagination of me with a rope pulling my drawer pack along. I just meant one on wheels, and just because I respect that some people will have come in that day and they'll be having chats, and it's better if they're together, and they might use my desk, and so it's like, well, I'll just horse my stuff over here. It's fine.
I know, exactly.
So,
I think we all need less stuff. That's what we need to.
Less stuff, more breaks. There was a lot of love coming in for earlier when you were talking about flexible leave from people who've both had it and haven't had it and have had to really encourage their employees to take the time when they're giving them these kind of unlimited or flexi holiday time. So
yeah, well, it's interesting that one, Kath, because we looked at fully unlimited holidays, but we decided that wasn't the policy we want to do because it feels like you're trying to, it kind of becomes a competition. It's what we learned from talking to a lot of businesses, that it makes people feel like they don't want to take holidays because it looks like they're taking more than everyone else. So we did the flexi leave in terms of that we said you have a minimum of 37. So we're going to give you a minimum really generous amount. And if you need more, we're going to be respectful and reasonable if it doesn't harm anyone in your team and cause undue stress for your clients, then yeah, that's fine. And I think that's a better way to approach it, rather than just the pure unlimited, because then there's no minimum. And if you have no minimum, people take less and they get more stressed, which is not good.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, final question. I think it's another tips and advice one. And again, we've kind of touched on it throughout, but I think it's a nice one to end on. So Laura was wondering if you've got any tips and advice on building relationships with new clients or new team members when you're not getting this face-to-face time. So maybe some examples of how you've done that with these kind of team socials and things for early starters.
Yeah, again, I think it's just engineering time to speak to people and making sure that you do that. So we've kind of, during this process, we've developed an onboarding process where we have definite check-ins for me, like on the first day, for example, check-ins after day 1, 2, 3, end of the week, etc., for different people. So making sure there's a process, because sometimes when we're all busy, we can forget, and if we can stick by those. And then, yeah, I suppose that's why we're looking to sort of ease in over the next few weeks, because we do want to get people socially together, because I do think it's as important as doing work together that you need to understand how to relax together as well. So yeah, that's pretty much
be comfortable with sharing ideas and putting new things out there with the people you're working with. 100%.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, that's all for a Q&A. So Caroline, I'll pass back to you to round up, and then you can pass back to me to round up again.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing your insights and your journey. And you're still plotting your course to the moon. And maybe we can hear back from you about further revelations that you've worked out along the way. So
yeah,
thank you.
I made it.
See if you made it, yeah. And hopefully people have been able to maybe digest some of the things you've been suggesting as methods and they can maybe look to see if, maybe we should chew the fat on those and see if we might want to implement some of those, or find our own way through ideation with our team, how we might do it. So thank you for your tips and inspiration. And as I say, I look forward to hearing more about the adventure, which I'm sure you'll post on LinkedIn.